Divine Mercy Radio Catholic 540 AM is proud to present Come to Me, Encounters with the Eucharist, a local program that shares the stories of people who have been drawn to or deepen their faith in the Catholic Church by encountering Jesus in the Eucharist. Welcome your host of Come to Me, Lydia Tatum.
Thank you for joining us for this month's episode of Come to Me, Encounters with the Eucharist, where we will hear another inspiring story of encounter as Jesus continues to call each of us to meet him in the Eucharist. In the Eucharist, we are called to new life. We're nurtured by his grace, and as St. John Damascene says, we are inflamed in order that we might be united in communion with Christ and with one another. On this episode of Come to Me, we will hear how Jesus in the Eucharist beckons us to unity in the Church. Today, I am joined by Sarah Caldwell. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're glad that you're with us in the studio today. We have just met right before we were starting to record this episode. And so you've already told me a little bit of this, but I'm going to ask you because it's good and it's fun for us to hear as listeners in our area. Where in the diocese are you located and where do you typically attend Mass?
So I am southeast Raleigh, technically Garner, but Raleigh kind of scooped up that area.
Yeah.
And my home parish is Holy Name of Jesus Cathedral.
Oh, wonderful. What a beautiful parish to call home.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So can you begin with us by sharing just a little bit of your background, your upbringing, and how your early faith shaped the trajectory of your life?
Sure. So I was raised Protestant, Presbyterian. We attended church the early part of my childhood, kindergarten through fifth grade. We lived in Wake County, but my dad was from Johnston County, and with the commercialism coming into Wake County, my parents said, nope, we're going to go somewhere, different. And so they found a home in Johnston County in Four Oaks. And that's where we moved in 1990 and stayed there. My parents still worked in Raleigh, so they were commuting. And they fell away from the church a little bit, which of course, therefore I did, as a teenager. And I ended up, going toward the church, out of the church, back and forth, just, as those friendships, as those relationships came about, unpleasant marriage, a longer-term second marriage to which I had a child with, but that did not work out. And then after all of that, I said, I'm coming back to Wake County. So I moved back to Wake County 4 years ago, and happy that I did because it has, I've met a lot of people to whom I could say have, encouraged, some discouraged at some points, but it has ultimately led me to Holy Name, and finally I'm home.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you are here, and 4 years, that has been quite a trajectory shift for you, I would imagine. Yeah. Coming back here and then coming into the Catholic Church. I'm sure there's a story behind what prepped you for being there. So can you look back on your journey a little bit before you moved to Wake County? It could be all the way back into childhood. And think about, are there moments when you began to feel something deeper along the way, but couldn't necessarily put your finger on it, that was perhaps a tug towards the Catholic faith?
So a couple of things. I was adopted. It was closed. I only knew at that time, I had about a sheet and a quarter of paper that gave me specifics. And so I had always thought that maybe it was that, not knowing, what my birth family looked like, and, was there really a why, and was there really a good reason? How did I end up where I was at? What was my purpose in life? I had lots of struggles along my way, just really wondering why I was here. And lots of therapy, good decisions, bad decisions along the way. I've reconnected with my birth family. That has been wonderful. So all of that was there and kind of satisfied that one thing that I thought was it. But it wasn't. It wasn't. I knew that I knew that there was just a deeper center. I knew that there was, more to me. I knew there had to be something for why I was here, why I'm here breathing air and building relationships and, making my impact where I can. And I apologize. Sometimes I lose my train of thought.
That's just fine. Yeah. So maybe we can go back. Before we started recording, we were talking about, I think you took a trip, you said, when you were in high school that was significant. You might not have realized how significant it was then, but you can put your finger on it now. Tell us about that.
Yes, that is correct. So my freshman year of high school, that high school always took their freshman students on an annual trip to Manhattan, New York. And, of course, we visited St. Patrick's Cathedral. And from the moment that I walked in that door, my skin is tingling right now just thinking about it. When I walked in that door and I put my finger in the holy water, and I wasn't really sure why I was doing that, but I thought it was the thing to do, and I didn't want to offend anybody. And I just looked around and I thought, I don't want to leave here. I'm not sure why, but I don't think I want to leave here. And when I came home from that trip, I just couldn't find that anywhere else. I'd been to probably 100 churches. I just didn't get that same feeling until I stepped inside a holy name.
Wow. Had you stepped inside any other Catholic churches between St. Patrick's and Holy Name?
I had not.
It might have been Jesus in the tabernacle.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's amazing to know that you could feel his presence. Yeah. And you had it in that one moment in St. Patrick's, which I know is just a gorgeous place to be. And so is Holy Name.
Yeah.
So there is the via pulchritudinus. It is the way of beauty that we have there, but also it is the real presence of Jesus Christ being there in church.
Yes.
That you felt.
Yes.
Made your skin tingle. You knew he was there.
Yes.
That's amazing. So from that high school experience, I know you shared with us that there were some ups and downs. There are good decisions, bad decisions. There's a lot that you're processing as an adoptive child. There were relationships, and there's a beautiful son all along the way that was a part of your life. And I'm sure from that moment, it wasn't just this one mountaintop. There were probably other moments that brought you into faith and out of faith, as most of us have an up and down roller coaster in our faith journey. Tell us a bit about that.
My goodness. Okay, where to start? Let's see. I had a very young marriage. I had no idea what I was doing. Was doing it for all the wrong reasons. It did not last very long. It unfortunately was not a pleasant experience, but I did manage to survive, and here I am. And then I met my son's father. We married, but we waited 8 years. Then we decided to have a child. We conceived, and I knew then, I thought, wow, what a gift. Life is such a gift. And of course, it was playing on some of those, is it because I'm adopted? And do I need to make this connection? And what is it? And and again, as I've already mentioned, I feel like I met those needs once I reconnected with the family and had some therapy, but there was still just something missing. And I just knew that in order to be the best me that I could be the best mother that I could be for my son, and with the hopes to, find the person that God really did mean for me, I knew that, I needed to make some changes. Those two prior partnerships that did not work out. It's not to say that they're, bad people. It's just our goals didn't really line up at the time. All of us still young, at the time. And while I learned a lot from that, I still was a little lost coming out of that going, what is going on? Why is nothing working out for me?
Mm-hmm.
What is happening?
Mm-hmm.
And then, actually, let's see. So in 2022, I was with some friends on Glenwood Avenue. After, a fairly lovely evening out, cocktail attire, had a limousine.
Mm-hmm.
Myself and 5 of those friends were hit by a drunk driver.
Oh, wow.
He hit all 6 of us. He was recently convicted of 2 felony counts, actually a couple weeks ago. And I believe that some of the conversation that I had with the DA about that was, I don't want to be responsible for sending somebody to prison, but I want him to get the help that he needs. And if you had asked me, could I have said that before I came to God? I would have said no. I would have said no, he deserves to go to prison. He deserves this. He deserves that. And since having come into the church and been confirmed and fully unified with God, it has just given me a different perspective on people. And we're not perfect. And sometimes those imperfections are worse than others.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of touch in on
Certainly.
on what we're wanting to talk about?
So at what point in your journey, because that was 2022, so not too long ago, at what point in your journey did you know that Jesus was calling you to the church and that you were being supported and held during sounds like some pretty tumultuous times? Were you aware before that God was with you along your way, or is it now you can look back because you've had this grace of the sacraments to help you see God's presence with you?
I would say it was when I found out what baptism was going to do for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was that moment when I realized that he was calling to me.
Wow.
To really reflect on what my life had been like. 46 years.
Mm-hmm.
Never been baptized, confirmed, none of that anywhere in any church, any denomination. To just know that, wait, so all I've got to do is just take his hand and just show up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to, fix all of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. So, to continue my answer, those little things along the way, my daddy approving of someone for the first time for me. In fact, he said, I like him, but I really like him for you.
That's wonderful.
I didn't understand it quite the way that I did later. I think that, the car accident, just hearing my son in the back screaming and crying and scared, that was, I think, definitely good enough reason to say, hey, you are extended all of these opportunities and these chances, and you just got to stop doubting why you are here. There is a reason. Mm-hmm. And my fiance being such a good man of God, and really the way he tries to, be a good Catholic and extend that into my life and into my son's life. It's just what's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm always fascinated to hear the stories that people have, because our roads are pretty up and down most of the time. Most humans have a pretty up and down road.
Yeah.
And to hear the ways that we have made choices and we go down certain roads and they are not of God and they were not intended for us. But for those who have found that road after so long, there's really not anything that you could say that could adequately express the completion of God's purpose for you, and being able to understand being held within the church and being held within a relationship that God intended for you, where you are actively together working towards your sanctification, working towards heaven together in your family as well. You know, that you have the same goal for your son as you guys work together on that. I think we jumped ahead just a tad. So I want to hear about your OCIA journey. So your fiance was Catholic.
Yes.
Recently confirmed Catholic, baptized as a baby.
Yes.
But as an adult came into full communion with the church. So he probably was pretty solid in his faith journey at that point when you guys met.
Oh, yes.
And how did that impact your choices as you went to Holy Name, you had your experience there, and then you made the decision to start finding answers to your questions?
So, early on in our relationship, when you meet someone new and you're dating, you're going through the screening process, and the real question comes up of, what is it that you are actually looking for? What are you hoping to get out of this relationship? And what does that look like? Do you ever want to be married again? And, sharing those trials, with one another, including ups and downs of failed marriages. It was, I feel like I am supposed to be married. I'm supposed to be married. And I didn't know why at the time, but I do now, but I was like, I'm supposed to be married. So yes, I want to be married again, and I want it to be right. The only way it's going to be right is to do it right with God. And if we love each other enough, we're going to do that together. And he's the first partner I'd had that, would walk with me with that.
Yeah.
And the moments where I wasn't sure or felt defeated, he's right there to just encourage me along, and just his resilience with, his own trials with what he and his family, have been through with loss. He is just an inspiration to me.
Mm-hmm. So after meeting him, did you attend Holy Name together?
We did.
And that was your first time in Holy Name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's where you met Jesus again?
Yes.
It had been a while.
It had been a while, but yes.
But you met Jesus again there. Did you go through your OCIA process at Holy Name?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me about that process. How was that for you?
First, if I may, Joe and Kathy Frieda are amazing, and
I have heard
they have really, really got a handle on how this program needs to be handled. I talked to Kathy first, in the pre-screening before, I decided to move forward with the journey. And then, she just kind of said, hey, yeah, all your questions you have, she said, that's exactly how hungry you should be. Mm-hmm. And we'd love to have you. And so that journey started off overwhelming, not necessarily in negative ways, but it was a lot of information. It was exactly what I wanted, because I had felt like, the past, I had just not been given all of the information. Even though I got an answer, it wasn't the answer.
Right.
But I would say that the OCIA program at Holy Name, specifically the sponsors that are available, the, I guess, foresight that the Fridas have to appropriately match candidates with a sponsor, that is, part of what held me there.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments, during OCIA that I had, experienced some spiritual oppression, just with, making it all come together and feeling like I'm so close, I'm so close to being baptized and confirmed, and this whole 46 years of awful things are going to be wiped away, and, what's going to happen if I die before I get there? And, all these questions were just going through my head about, I've made it this close.
Yeah.
I've got to see this through. I've got to finish it out. And the support there is amazing, and it continues to be amazing, even in the Mass, seeing people out that, it's a huge cathedral, right? It's over 2,000 people. And I've seen people in other counties that I may not have ever been on a first name basis with. It's like, hey, I know you. We go to Mass together. It's really cool. Yeah. So OCIA, I think from start to finish, it's appropriately, I guess, geared toward the hungry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it also, the process, yes, you get your Catholicism 101. You get the answers to the questions that you have, but also the process is also meant to develop your interior life along the way to really prepare you to live as a faithful Catholic. We always say, especially with our teenagers, your confirmation is not your graduation, but it's just the beginning of your life as a Catholic. And so developing that interior life along the way helps so that you can be launched. You have wings to fly as you begin your life as a Catholic, and prayer has to be the underlying current of all of that. So how did your prayer life develop during that time from where it had been walking into it to where it is today?
It's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I pray minimal 3 times a day. Sometimes it's short. Sometimes it's very long-winded and very specific. Prior to that, I may have occasionally prayed when I sat down to a meal.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm not afraid to pray in public. I don't care who's watching. Hopefully they'll look at it and go, oh, there is something to that. Just like I did, those people along the way that I would see. Just those small things that we can do to, I don't want to use pride, but to exude Him from the inside out.
Yes.
And show the world that there is peace in this, and He's always with us. He's always walking with us. Mm-hmm. I've encountered, lots of questions from coworkers and family members and even strangers. They say, oh, tell me about what's going on. Why did you decide to do that? One of the common questions is, are you from New York? Are you from upstate? It's like, I guess there's like this common misconception that Catholics are from up north. I'm not really sure why, but, so, that opportunity to be a steward when people ask questions, when they are curious, that also adds to my prayer life. Yeah. Because I thought, gosh, if what I said, if what I shared today might be that one deciding factor that's going to save their soul.
Yeah. In those conversations, have there been questions that they've asked that your answer has surprised them?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about some of those.
I think the biggest one would actually be a friend of mine who is Christian, Protestant, Baptist. This friend said, "So, tell me about becoming Catholic. Like, are you still going to be Christian?" And I was like, whoa, okay, let's see. All right, here's where we start. The original church, this is it. This is him. This is his word. This is where it started. And, explaining how it unfolded in the Reformation and where those removals began and what that really looked like. My friend was like, oh, I had no idea that that's really what Reformation was.
Yeah.
And I said, I didn't either until I went to OCIA, until my fiance was, educating me on what real Christianity, well, I shouldn't say real, but what real Christianity is, what Catholicism is.
Mm-hmm. I always think it's funny, I think it's still the case that if you ask Siri who founded the Catholic Church, the answer is always Jesus. Even AI knows. The answer is Jesus. He was the one who founded this. And the beauty of apostolic succession is that we are forever linked all the way back to Christ himself.
Yes.
Not just in this linear timeline, but also in the fact that every time we go into a Catholic Mass, we are there. We are at the foot of the cross. We are in the upper room. Yes. We are with him as he is represented to us, and that we get to experience his actual presence.
Yes.
It's physical for us, and it's very metaphysical, as when we talk about existing outside of time and space, when we're in Mass and that heaven meets earth in that moment, and that we are literally there and he's literally there with us. That's something you don't get anywhere else.
Right.
And so I'm sure, as if you've started down that track answering a question for someone, you probably have blown their minds pretty big
yes.
because it is something that they've never heard before. Yeah. There's no context for that for them, and it is brand new. So I'm excited that people are asking you questions and that you are answering those questions, and you sound like you've been pretty well prepared through a wonderful OCIA program and a wonderful fiance.
Yes.
So that you can answer with truth for the hope that you have, the change that people are seeing in you, and the peace that you have in Christ. It's just beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So through that OCIA journey, as you've started to learn answers to your own questions and you've begun to pray and you've been prepared, were there any particular moments of resistance or struggle that you faced yourself that kind of might have pumped the brakes as you were moving forward?
I don't really believe there's anything specific.
Mm-hmm.
Every question that I had, there was an answer, including down to what I would say is the very last answer, when we don't have any other reason. It's a dogma, and you just believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I choose to believe.
Yeah, there is a point that it just has to be faith.
I choose to believe.
Yeah, just has to be faith. So you spoke a little bit about the yearning for the sacraments that you experienced. So bring us to Easter Vigil. Tell us what it was like for you.
It was amazing. So I honestly didn't know what to expect with baptism, confirmation, Eucharist. I had this idea, this feeling. And I remember, standing at the baptismal font, and the bishop was, pouring the water over my head, and I felt this calming feeling. But it wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be this, and there, and that feeling was there, but it was much more subdued.
Mm-hmm.
But when the bishop approached me face to face on the altar and called my name,
yeah,
and we locked eyes, and it was like in a movie. It's like, you know, those movies where it seems like all of the air is just sucked out of a space, and it just is like, and you hear nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That happened, and God was talking to me right through the bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was looking at me through the bishop. That was his eyes. It was his voice, and he said my name. And when the bishop touched my forehead, that's when I knew it was that moment that it was like, thank God, I know where I belong now.
You are home.
I'm home. Thank you for having me.
And a purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is just such an incredible feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I heard him talking to me in that moment. There was nobody else there but me and him.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. And I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I know. No.
And then afterward, you know, the Eucharist was just like, gosh, you just don't think it can get any better, and it just does. It's like I just experienced all of this. How can there be more?
Right.
But there is. And it was just nice to know that there is more. I am his, and I am saved.
Mm-hmm. I think the beauty of Easter Vigil, especially for the elect, is that you get to experience the intentional progression of the sacraments of initiation. And so you do get to move from one to the next. For cradle Catholics, it's a long life journey, and it is intentional still. You know, they have their baptism, and then at age of reason, they are prepared and have First Holy Communion, and then slightly older than that, when they're really able to take ownership in their faith, then there is confirmation. And that's equally as beautiful. But when it is compressed into those sacred moments at Easter Vigil, and you get to experience all of it, I think your heart probably felt like it was going to explode.
Yes, it did.
Absolutely.
It was like, there's more.
Yeah, there is
There's
more.
Oh my gosh.
You see him, he speaks to you, he calls your name, and then he presents his body for you.
And
It's
that is
just
just
incredible.
And that is just a sampling
Yeah.
of what heaven's going to be like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. And I love to hear it from your perspective. I think our listeners need to hear it from your perspective, to hear what a radical difference Christ makes in our lives. Sometimes we can just float.
Yeah.
And we can let the currents take us through those ups and downs, and we have no tethering, and we have no grounding. We have no understanding that Christ is there with us if we would just reach out and hold his hand. Yeah. And to be able to hear the dramatic difference Christ has made in your life, and how incredibly powerful the sacraments have been for you and through your experience, is just beautiful for us to hear. So how long ago was your Easter Vigil when you came into the church?
So it was last year.
Last year.
So
oh my
this year
goodness.
will be, yeah.
You're almost at 1 year.
I have almost
You're
said 1 year.
a 1-year-old Catholic.
Yeah.
I know. I'm not much older than
Just a
you. So yeah, that's wonderful. So, okay. So you came into the church last April.
Yes.
And since coming into the church, of having those incredible moments with Christ, what has it been like every week? wanting to get back to Mass, wanting to get back to see him and to be with him. How has that been for you?
Another calling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I miss Mass, I have missed an opportunity. I have missed, I've missed that opportunity to commune with him. Mm-hmm. And it can feel very empty, and I don't want that to ever feel like it did before. So we just try to be very intentional to go even when we are out of town. Mm-hmm. I visited the most churches in the last 3 years that I've probably ever been to church collectively, possibly in my lifetime up until that point. Whatever state, whatever town, if we're there on Mass, we go. Mm-hmm. So that's a really good experience. And that is the fact that no matter what church, what Catholic church you go into, whatever Mass you are attending, any given other place in the world where there is Catholic Mass, the same thing is happening.
Mm-hmm. And Jesus is there.
And Jesus is there. Yeah. And that is, again, overwhelming.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to look like St. Pat's.
No.
And it doesn't have to look like Holy Name.
No, it doesn't. No.
It can be cinder block walls and a concrete floor, but Jesus is there.
Yeah, yeah. One of our favorite, smaller churches is Mother of Mercy in Little Washington. Mm-hmm. So we love going there also.
Yeah,
when we're out of town.
Wow, what a story! So I think I can hear in your voice how impactful your relationship with Jesus has been for the past 4 years, but especially in this past year. It bubbles out of you when you talk about him. So how do you share that with others? I know some people have asked questions, but do you feel an urge to tell just strangers? Do you feel an urge to tell people about what a difference Christ has made?
Every opportunity I get. Mm-hmm. I may not initiate, but there is usually an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Some of them are more subtle than others. Some of those opportunities I can hit, I'm going to call it hit the high points of my conversion and those, very impactful moments. But any time I hear negativity, someone's questioning, or they're looking for a church, I use that opportunity to say, hey, this is what I did. Maybe you should check it out. Maybe that's, maybe you're having those questions because this is where you need to go.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone listening right now who feels drawn to the Catholic Church but is afraid of what they might find, of what they might lose along the way, or what it might demand of their life if they were to have to change something in their life that they're holding on to? What would you tell them?
I think I would first ask, are you tired? Are you running out of strength? Because it doesn't have to be this way. His hand's there all the time. You just have to reach out and grab it. The support that Catholic families extend to strangers, specifically attending churches out of town where no one knows you.
Yeah.
Just try it. Mm-hmm. Just go try. Don't be afraid. If there's one time in your life to be brave, that's the time.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story with us today.
You're welcome.
Oh my
It's been my
goodness,
pleasure.
it's amazing. It's been such a joy to hear just the passion that God has placed in your heart for Him, and how He has called to you, and He has called you by name, and you have responded, yes, Lord, along the way. It's just beautiful to hear, and I know that your witness out in the world, as you continue to walk and beam peace and hope and joy and light of Christ to everyone you meet, will be a witness that will call people to the same kind of healing that you received and that you're continuing to receive in the church. Thank you to our wonderful production team here at Divine Mercy Radio. This has been a beautiful episode to produce, and so I'm grateful that they're here helping us tell this story. You can listen to this episode again or previous episodes of Come to Me, in addition to all of our local programming, on our website at DivineMercyRadio.org/local programs. You can listen anytime on the free Divine Mercy Radio NC app or on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Come to Me. I'm Lydia Tatum, and until next time, Jesus, in the most blessed sacrament, hear our prayer.